and your assignment isn't going to be a worksheet. It's actually going to be Google Slides because you're going to do some manipulating with those slides. So I'm going to walk you through it. This is our next, our next step or our next phase in terms of factoring quadratics, using algebra tiles one more time, and then we will move into working on not having to use algebra tiles, but we also know that we can use them as a resource. So lesson 3 is all about quadratics, and we are going to talk about more factoring, again, using those algebra tiles. And so after today, you should be able to completely factor quadratics using algebra tiles. So go ahead and get your paper labeled. And we will move on shortly. Oh, my guard dog. She thinks she's so tough. She barks anytime she's in the house, but then she's a chicken outside. All right, so lesson 3, again, more work with quadratics. So the second slide here is just a reminder about all those different tiles that we have available to us. Remember, the red sides are the negatives, the non-red sides are the positive. So we're going to move right into our first example. So you're going to use this little T-square thing. I don't really know what to call it, but you're going to drag the X tiles under the T-square to make a rectangle. Now, I've got a pile of X squareds, and I've got a pile of 1s. And then we're going to use this additional pile right here and drag them underneath to make our complete rectangle. So for some of these, you might have to kind of play around with where they're going to go, but I'm just going to drag this tile. Whoops. I'm going to drag that tile up, and I'm going to do this. Now, I notice I've also got these 1s that are here. If I drag this 1, this isn't going to make a complete rectangle like we talked about yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to put it here. Now, like I said, the directions in here say I need to drag these X tiles to fill this in and make a rectangle. Before I do that, why don't you, on your paper, go ahead and sketch these. Draw some big squares, label them X squared. Draw some little squares, label them 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fill in these open spaces right here and right here with X tiles to fill that in as a complete rectangle. So take a moment and get your paper set up. Let me erase those purple squares. I guess I could have kept them. But... So we're going to put X tiles in there. This is good practice with my hand-eye coordination. All right. And then I ran out of patience. All right, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to drag X tiles. Remember that the length of the 1 tile is the same as the width of the X. So I know that I can drag 3 X's underneath each of these X squareds because we know also the length of each X squared is X. And I'm going to fill that in, and notice I still don't have a complete rectangle. I need to bring 1 more row of X's here underneath it. I've got that here. And then I almost have it completely filled in. I know that I need to fill in here as well. So I'm going to drag and drop my X tile right here. And then what we're going to do is, oh, why didn't my X come with it? It doesn't matter. What we're going to do then is we are going to bring our tiles up above as well as along the side. And I know very similarly to underneath to fill in that rectangle, I need to grab these X tiles to get the entire length of this rectangle underneath. And I know I need to grab one. And then I'm going to do the same thing along the vertical edge. I know I need an X. And I know I need 2 ones. So notice underneath that grid, that XY table thing, that it makes a rectangle underneath. And then we label the expressions here with tiles. And then remember, we talked about factored form and expanded form. Factored form comes from the width and the length of that rectangle. Expanded form comes from all of the tiles underneath. So then my factored form, I take a look at my dimensions. This is X plus 2. So one of my factors is X plus 2. And 3X plus 1 goes in the other set of parentheses. And then the other thing, if you recall, I have these 3x squareds that we started with. I've got this 2 that we have here. And then all I'm going to do is count how many total x's I have. And that number is going to go on this space. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then they're positive. So I'm going to say plus 7x. And that's what you're looking for. Drag the tiles underneath that X thing, the T-square thing, and then fill it in. And then you're going to label for factored form and expanded form. So again, the factored form comes from like the length and the width. Expanded form would be like the area. When you've got that sketched and you're ready for me to move on to the next slide, if you could please click the raise hand button, I would appreciate it. All right, I'll give you a little more time to get that finished, and then we are going to move on to our next example. Again, the key is to make sure that you make that rectangle underneath that little T-square thing, and then the outside part is the length and width of that rectangle. That's your factored form, and expanded form is combining those terms underneath that T-square. Frankie, hey, we're okay, come here. Good girl, you wait, good girl. Good girl. All right. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. So we're going to do that same thing here. We're going to find both the factored form and expanded form. In this case, our underneath part is going to have some negatives. So the same thing, I've got these 2x squared, so I'm going to drag each of those. Again, it doesn't matter if you choose to put them vertically or horizontally. It's all going to depend on how they're going to fit, either the height or the length. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these singletons and I'm going to put them here off the corner of those x squareds. It's a bit of a challenge today. There we go. So now what we have to do is we need to figure out what are we going to put here underneath this x and what are we going to fill in this open space. And knowing that this is a negative, we're going to need something in there to be that what I need. Let's see. So if I drag negatives in here, whoops, wrong version. Oh, I ran out of those vertical ones. Question is if that's going to work. How do you know whether or not to put a negative or a positive? Right now, it's kind of guessing, Sam. I know that because this last number is going to be negative, I'm going to have some negative x tiles in here. I know, well, and I will ask you this. Nope, that's not going to make sense with what I was going to say. It's kind of trial and error right now, to be honest with you. Let's see if this is going to make sense. I've got x minus 4, and then I believe this one is 2x plus 1. All right. Let me try to answer that. I'm trying to answer that question with, if I put a negative here, that would make this negative. I am tile challenged today. And let's see, what do I want to say? What was the question? How do I know where to put negatives versus positives? Oh my goodness. Did that one not move? How do I know where to put the, oh my goodness. It should be grouped. I don't know why that didn't move together. Try it again. There. Let's see. How do I know? I'm distracted by why the tiles aren't moving. How do I know which ones I needed negatives versus positives? It's going to be trial and error in terms of where they go for now. What you are going to learn on Friday and next week is you'll learn how to figure out specifically what needs to end up happening. And again, once we're done with the tiles, it'll make a little bit, I won't say it'll make more sense, but it has to do with what you need to end up here in this middle. And I know this isn't going to work with a -1 here in terms of how we have to have it factored. This one actually ends up needing to be a +1 here. And this x actually needs to end up being a positive. Well, first of all, I got to keep it this way. So I know that I needed to have this to be -1 here, and these guys needed to be positive. So I know a positive times a positive is going to make this positive. And another positive, I don't know why that x isn't moving, another positive times a positive makes this positive. And then I've got 1 times x to make this +1. But then because we have these -4s here, I know that I need to have now these negatives up top. So then you're going to fill in your expanded and factored forms. Once you get those tiles up there and placed. Oops. Oh my goodness. There we go. So then you go with your expanded and factored forms. Again, factored forms are the length and the width of the rectangle. And then you're expanded, so this is 2x plus 1. And this is x minus 4. Notice this whole column here is positive, right? A positive times a positive makes a positive times a positive makes a positive. So I knew that these needed to be positives. And so then we simplify it, and I see that I've got 2x squared. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 negatives and 1 positive x. So my middle term here is going to be -7x. And remember, these two make a 0 pair here, right? Anytime you pair the same tile up, a positive and a negative, they cancel. If I had filled in with positive x's here, right, and then this one would have had to have been a negative, and a negative times a positive up here would not have given me these -4s. So I knew I had to play around with both the positive x's and the negative x's to make it work. And that is really all you're going to do today. So here is your closure. So what's an idea or a strategy that you can use to make sure that you've got those rectangles underneath that T-frame thing? When you are ready, go ahead and refresh your screen if you haven't yet, and you are going to look for the, what color is it? Is it green? What color is our folder today? Yellow. You're going to look for the yellow lesson 3 folder, excuse me. All right, and in the yellow lesson 3 folder, you will see your assignment is Google Slides. Very similar to this. I think it's like 5 or 6 questions. And then when you're done, I need you to post your link to your DUR like you did in the previous unit. And just a heads up, I have not looked at assignments 1 and 2 yet. So make sure that you're getting those taken care of. My plan is to get that done tonight because tomorrow in advisory, you're going to get you should get quite a bit of time for work time on your assignments. So the rest of the class time for you, you've got about 15 minutes is to work on that assignment. Again, you're going to drag and drop, make those rectangles underneath the grid lines, and then you are going to come up with your factor pairs.